Syria's President Ahmed al-Sharaa says protecting the rights of the Druze minority is his priority, but he has ceded security control of the southern region of Suwayda to local authorities. Government forces have begun withdrawing heavy equipment after trying to break up fighting between Druze factions and Bedouin tribes. Dozens of military vehicles were seen leaving the city overnight. Sharaa has, however, accused Israel of trying to sow divisions within Syria.
The Israeli entity, which has consistently targeted our stability and sown discord since the fall of the former regime, now seeks once again to turn our sacred land into a theater of endless chaos, aiming to fragment our unity and weaken our ability to rebuild. I especially address our Druze brethren, who are an integral part of this nation's fabric. Syria will never be a place for division, fragmentation, or sectarian strife. We affirm that protecting your rights and freedoms is among our top priorities. We reject any attempt, foreign or domestic, to sow division within our ranks.
Those comments came hours after Israeli airstrikes on the Syrian Defense Ministry headquarters in Damascus. Two strikes hit the ministry situated in the center of Damascus. They were followed by more bombs close to the presidential palace and on the outskirts of the capital. Israel claims the attacks were in support of the Druze minority in Syria. Nour Odeh standing by for us in the Jordanian capital, Amman. First, we cross to Zeina, Khodr, who's joining us from Sueda in southern Syria to talk us through what you're seeing this morning and the political and military situation.
Well, tensions have eased. There were days of heavy clashes and days of Israeli airstrikes that left dozens of people dead, but the situation is still very precarious. Behind me is a few kilometers from here is the city of Sueda, but we are not able to reach there. Government forces which are stationed close by have told us that the situation is still very precarious, fluid. The security situation is still very fluid. So government forces have withdrawn from the city, from the governorate, both forces from the Defense Ministry, the Interior Ministry. It's part of a deal that was reached late yesterday. We heard the Syrian President Ahmed al-Sharaa really explain or spell out the details of that deal. And, security, the responsibility for security will be in the hands of the local community, the Druze fighters. So in many ways, the Syrian government had to pull out. It was under a lot of pressure. And Sharaa really justified this decision because of threats coming from Israel. In his words, we had to put the interests of Syrians before chaos and destruction. And he said it's the best choice at this stage because we have to preserve the unity in the country and the safety of the people. We saw Israel carry out airstrikes in the Syrian capital across southern Syria, targeting government forces, and Israeli leaders were threatening to intensify and escalate those strikes, really putting the new authorities at risk, the stability of this country at risk. Sharaa also coming under pressure from the United States, the State Department publicly saying Syrian forces need to withdraw in order to de-escalate the situation. So government forces have left this region. Israel wants to keep this whole area demilitarized. It says that it's for its, national security interests. It's also saying that it's doing this to protect the minority Druze community. So really the situation is quite fluid. We've seen people carry their belongings, leave this area because very close to Sueda are areas where the Bedouins live. This whole clash began between Druze fighters and Bedouin tribes. That's when the government intervened. So a very precarious situation at this point in time, but the government leaving this area.
So what are the groups there saying and how divided are they on the way forward?
Well, the Druze community, the minority Druze community is divided. Some of them are ready and willing to cooperate with the new authorities in Damascus. No doubt they have expressed some concerns, but they are ready to cooperate. They're ready to accept the Sueda's full integration into the state. Even during 14 years of war, Suwayda, enjoyed some sort of local autonomy. But there's an influential Druze sheikh, Ahmed al-Hajri, who is refusing to cooperate with the government. He says the government is nothing more than a group of armed gangs, and he is calling for armed resistance. So you see, it's a very fluid situation. It's hard for us to just drive in and venture into the city because you still don't know who is who and who controls what areas. So divisions within the community itself, and the government, this has been one of its major challenges, to extend its authority across the country.
Okay, Zeina Khodr, reporting from Sueda in Syria. Thank you. Nour Odeh joining us from Jordan's capital, Amman, because the Israeli government has banned Al Jazeera from reporting inside Israel and in the occupied West Bank. So al-Sharaa is saying that it's Israel trying to stoke tensions. What have the Israeli authorities been saying?
Well, the Israeli authorities have refrained from commenting about why they stopped bombing Syria, Sueda, and Damascus in general, following American intervention and also mediation by regional players like Turkey and like Qatar and others. They don't want to give a finality to this cessation. But we've been hearing, Darine, from the figures in the opposition, like the Yair Lapid, the head of the opposition in Israel, who said that attacking the vicinity of the presidential palace in Damascus was reckless. It was not strategic. We've been, reading in the Israeli media very prominent commentators saying that Netanyahu's move was steeped in hypocrisy, pointing to the basic law in Israel that discriminates against minorities, including the Druze, that does not consider they have the right to self-determination. At the same time, there are careful comments from many politicians who talk about the need to keep the pact with the Israeli Druze community. Druze, of course, in Israel serve in the army, reach very prominent positions in the Israeli army, and that alliance within Israel proper is seen as very strategic, and it does set them apart, for example, from Palestinian Israelis, who comprise 20% compared to the Druzes 2%, who do not participate in the Israeli army and who are seen as outsiders to the state.
How is this all reflecting on the domestic front on Netanyahu, and talk us through whether he's under any sort of political pressure?
Well, the Israeli army said that they would reinforce the border patrol separating between the recently occupied Syrian territory under Israeli military control and the rest of Syria in order to prevent more Druze youth from crossing over. Those officers would have crowd control measures like tear gas and so on. A member of the Knesset from the Druze community belonging to a right-wing party talked about calm being restored and that there is some optimism. But at the same time, the discussion about this is one-dimensional. So while Netanyahu is, taking steps, building on a perceived or a well-choreographed pressure from the Druze community to intervene, there are Druze as well who oppose Israeli intervention, namely the Syrian Druze in the occupied Syrian Golan. Some of them crossed into Sueda and met with the leaders there and talked about rejecting to be exploited by Netanyahu for his own purposes.
Okay, thank you, Nour Odeh, reporting from Amman.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.